Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. We are here to address the case of Adnan Syed, a man who has been wrongfully convicted for a malicious act against a girl he cared for greatly, an act he was not capable of committing. Adnan Syed, a loving son, friend, and community member, a young man whose sights are set on attending college, does not possess the power to go through with such a heinous crime. If we take a look at the evidence presented to us, we can conclude that the AT&T cover sheets announce that any incoming call will not be considered reliable information for location. This means the two calls Adnan received at 7:09 and 7:16 that pinged near the cell tower near Lincoln Park are unreliable in providing knowledge to where Adnan was during that time. The fact that these calls are not reliable raises more doubt in Jay's timeline, since there's no real support for anything he claims. We have more doubt in Jay when we find out the prosecutors told him that if he cooperates and supports the claim against Adnan, then he will not be convicted. We also see tapping during his interview, which is used by the detectives to guide Jay's story. This indicates that during the period of time before the interview was being recorded, Jay and the detectives created a code to use to direct Jay's story, effectively alternating the evidence presented. I would next like to bring your attention to the fact that in Adnan's original trial, Adnan was the only suspect brought up. It became known later on that the detectives did not follow any leads that led to anyone but Adnan. However, as we searched, it was made clear to us that there are several other suspects than just Adnan. First, there's Ronald Lee Moore. He was released from the Baltimore County Jail on January 1st, 1999, and Hay was murdered on January 13th, 1999. He was later convicted for the murder of Annalise Hyen-Suk Lee, who is also Asian. Annalise was strangled, but it was also said that she was raped. There is also evidence of another serial killer present in the area around the same period, Royce Davis. Royce Davis strangled and raped another girl who attended Woodland High School. The detectives claimed that Hay was not raped, but the testing they did was undeveloped, causing questions about the validity of the test results to arise. It is also suspicious when we found out that Hay had her shirt, bra, and skirt pushed up, as mentioned by the autopsy results. So the question comes to, who is more likely to commit an atrocious deed? A man who has priors, who has clearly not hesitated to take advantage of a young girl in the past, or a young boy who once loved and still cared for the victim at the time of the murder? There's also the question of Don, who was Hay's boyfriend at the time. He was not investigated in depth due to the fact he had an alibi, claiming that he was at work during the time of the murder, but his alibi was his mother, who in any case could easily cover for her son. If we're talking investigation on the basis of personal relationships to Hay, Don should have at least been interviewed and investigated as much as Adnan, instead of being written off completely. Then much of this case is built and supported by assumptions that are not supported by proof whatsoever. Adnan's role of Hay's former boyfriend has been manipulated to the point that it is used as a large portion of the evidence against him in this case, when in reality, Adnan has been described as loving and caring and friendly toward Hay. Based on the statistics provided by the Bureau of Justice Statistics report, there is a 1 in 5 chance he killed Hay. What about the other 80% of people we're not calling into question? Why are we focusing on the smaller percentage rather than the larger percentage of people who could have potentially murdered Hay? Also, evidence considered during this case was taken wildly out of context. For example, the note written by Adnan stating, "I'm going to kill," was automatically linked to Hay's murder, without any other scenarios being considered. Being a high school student is a stressful task, not to mention the fact that Adnan was also a student athlete, which put more on his plate. Jury members, I have no doubt you have experienced extreme amounts of stress. Instances when you want to kill a boss, mother-in-law, friend. It is a common saying in the English language, especially among the younger generations. And yes, while it is particularly violent, it holds no weight in this situation. It was taken directly out of context. The assumption that this one note is associated with murder is not supported by any additional evidence. Showing the evidence not specifically related to the case has been repeatedly used against Adnan, ultimately portraying him as a murderer. It appears as if every piece of evidence that has come to light has been twisted in such a way that it reflects poorly on Adnan. If you're still unsure, please consider Dendre and Wright. head of the University of Virginia School of Law's Innocent Project. She advocates the state did not have enough evidence to open a case against Adnan Syed, and rather that this case is composed of assumptions against Adnan. As people of intelligence, I'm sure you understand, two people cannot be in the same place at once. Asia McClain saw Adnan in the library on January 13th, 1999, the exact day and time when Hay disappeared. Now you may be wondering why it didn't surface during the original trial, and that is due to poor performance on Christina's part. Adnan pushed for her to use the letters that McClain had written her as evidence, but she never did. She didn't use them when they accused Adnan of being with Hay during the time. She didn't use them when they accused Adnan of brutally murdering her during that time. She didn't use them, period. A year later, Asia was contacted by Rabe, who originally brought the case to Sarah's attention, and McClain agreed to sign an affidavit attesting to seeing Adnan in the library. Although this alone seems to be an astonishing evidence that Adnan couldn't have possibly committed the crime, there's more. Asia wanted to come forward a long time ago. She reached out to Kevin Urich to ask him about the status of the case. As an agent of the state, it would seem he would be fair and trustworthy, but instead he dissuaded her from testifying. He assured her that they had the right man, that she was grasping at straws. He manipulated her and convinced her that her voice didn't matter in the court of law. Unlike the past detectives and prosecutors, we did not simply look at one side of the equation. We investigated all the evidence to find out what really happened on January 13th, 1999, and not just to convict. And when we look at all this evidence laid out in front of you, it is clear Adnan is innocent. Adnan Syed, a man who is loyal and caring towards his friend and family, did not commit this crime. One of the fundamental aspects of American crime system is innocent until proven guilty. How can we, as citizens of the United States, allow an innocent man to fall prey to injustice because of preconceived notions about his characters and morals? The fate of this man relies on your ability to perform your duty as an American. I rest my case.